Rabbi Galko promised you that I was going to talk about the plagues, the first 7 plagues. And I wanted to tell you, I worked all week to come up with some meaningful words about the 7 plagues. And every time I came up with something that was really, important in terms of rabbinic tradition and ideas, they just rang hollow, the message this week. Right? It felt like whatever words I was going to share today, given what's happening in our country, really, you're going to talk about that? You're going to talk about frogs, right? You're going to talk about blood, right? Could talk about blood. You're going to talk about lice, and we're like, what are you going to talk about? And I couldn't find a Devar Torah. I couldn't find words. But then I realized why, because I was feeling like I was in the plagues myself. Right? I was feeling like, oh my God, the world around me, what's happening? Right? This pandemic that's been afflicting us all. And then the events in our country. And then this last week, right? The week before, right? I see you taking a deep breath. Like, how can you not feel like you're in the middle of the plagues? And I just thought, I feel pain. I can't feel anything else right now. And it was a rough moment. And then I thought about the message of the Exodus. I thought about how they had to leave and be redeemed. And I thought about the first thing is that they had to do it together. And I thought that, as a country, we have to do it together. We have to figure that out. But what does that take? It's going to take a couple of things. One is it's going to take calling out evil where it's evil. Right? It's going to take forgetting about what has become known as whataboutism, right? And calling out evil of fringe groups, right? And those who really were responsible for this. We have to call that evil out without either side saying, oh, well, what happened the other time when you didn't call anybody out? Right? That's what whataboutism is. A new term that's been coming up. Because we want moral equivocation. We want to say, well, do you want us to say, why didn't you? So we have to stand up together now against that evil. We have to. And then we've got to figure out how to talk about it. So what is the difference then between what took place in the Capitol, what took place in Seattle? Let's talk about those differences and to understand how we see things differently. See, part of the problem is that we see each other in monochromatic ways, right? Liberals and conservatives are all one description. If you're conservative, I know exactly what you think. If you're a liberal, I know exactly what you think. Isn't that how we're functioning? We're assuming we know everything because of what we ascribe to a label. And by the way, we live in a bilateral country in which you have to vote for one of 2 parties. It doesn't mean that defines you sometimes. It's just you may be very conflicted about those issues, but we're forced into 2 separate camps. And we have to walk together as the Israelites walked out of Egypt together. We've got to figure this out, folks. We have to. What else did I take from our portion? It's in chapter 6, verse 6, where God describes how he's going to bring out the Israelites. And he uses 4 verbs. The Hebrew is hotzeti, hitzalti, ga'alti, lakachti. Right? I'll take you out, I will save you, I'll redeem you, I'll take you to be my people. And I thought about, and the rabbis talk about this, that the redemption of the Israelites is a process. It's one step at a time. And that's what we have to do. Take one step at a time. We're not going to be able to fix everything. Certainly not by tomorrow. Certainly not by next week. Might not be next year. So the rabbis say Hotzeti is the moment that God said the Israelites would be free. But they didn't leave right away. They had to act. They had to leave together. Hitzalti, right? I'm going to bring you out. They're going to come out together. And then Lakachti, right? Sorry, Ga'alti, the third one. And the rabbis say that's at the Sea of Reeds. right? That is where the Israelites confronted the water in front of them and the Egyptian army behind them. And it was another moment of redemption. Were they going to go forward? Were they going to turn back? Feels like sometimes that this is the moment, isn't it, that we're at the Red Sea as a nation. Does it feel that way a little bit? Like we have our democracy, right? We have the values, we have done it, and then now we're confronted. Man, seems like an impenetrable force in front of us. We're looking at what's chasing us from behind, and we just don't know if we're going to be able to fix this. But the waters eventually open, and we pass through, and eventually we come to Mount Sinai, and we create a new covenant. That's what we're going to need in America, is a new covenant, isn't it? In which we stand together, in which we realize the things that we have in common are much greater than the differences that divide us. And we're going to have to begin to hear that divine voice that speaks to us to stand together at that mountain. So I didn't know what to say today. I couldn't talk about frogs or vermin or lice. Because our country feels like it's in the middle of plagues. But there has to be hope. And we're that hope. Just have to remember that. May our nation always understand its blessings, and we as people are part of that blessing.